According to a new survey from the Federal Reserve, the average American family's net worth dropped by nearly 40% between 2007 and 2010, wiping out 18 years' worth of accumulated wealth. The middle class was hit the hardest. High-income Americans had more cushion, and those with low incomes were protected somewhat by the safety net and President Obama's 2009 stimulus. The 40% reflects wealth loss in all communities. But as we all know, when America sneezes, African Americans catch pneumonia. Even though homes are typically the largest asset of most households, regardless of race, homes of black families make up 59% of their net worth compared to 44% among white families. White households typically hold more of other types of assets like stocks and IRA accounts. So when the housing crisis hit, driving down the value of homes and pushing up foreclosure rates, black households lost a far greater share of their wealth than did whites. The housing crash has certainly devastated us. We're talking about the loss of middle-class wealth today. Former economic advisor to President Obama, Cecilia Rouse, professor of economics and public affairs at Princeton University, joins us from Princeton. Cecilia, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shouldn't we simply accept the reality, Cecilia, that the economy that we used to have is no more? Every month when the jobs report comes out, people say what happened when President Reagan was in office, the last time we went through a difficult time. But we are living in a much different world now. And at some point, when do we begin to accept what is the new normal?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that question, in the sense that I think our economy has always been dynamic. There have always been changes. Yes, it's a little different. It's more global than when President Reagan was in office, for example. We know that technology is playing an ever-increasing role. We're more of a service-oriented economy. But I do believe that the foundations of our economy remain the same, which is we're an economy and a country that's based on innovation. And I believe that we will regain our footing. I think we're already seeing signs of that. Yes, it's a slow recovery, but I believe we're in a recovery, and that maybe we won't be in a bubble like we were, which before we got into this economic crisis. But I believe we will regain our strength as a strong economic country.
Here's what I mean by that. If you look at what is taking place over the last 20 years, in many ways we were driven by credit. Folks overextending themselves. You look at credit card debt. You look at many of these cases where folks were flipping these homes back and forth. Housing prices were inflated. Now, all of a sudden, the economy falls through the floor. People begin to recognize they can't continue to overextend themselves. And so and when 70% of our economy is driven by consumer spending, and now all of a sudden consumers are choosing not to spend like they used to, and you don't have all of the credit, that creates a ripple effect, because if you're a business and folks aren't spending more money, I really can't hire more people. I must do more with less. And so that's what I mean by the new normal. It's how we also are living differently by virtue of the crisis where we were totally overextended. And frankly, it was called check due.
I think that's right. It's funny that you call it the new normal, because I think many of us look back at that time and say that should never have been the normal, that it was a bubble. We were outspending our incomes, and that kind of growth is not sustainable. What we're looking forward to going forward is balanced growth in which we all benefit, and that's sustainable. And so I think, maybe it's a new normal in that we're not going to be living on heydays where we're living off of credit that we can't pay back ever. But I think what we're looking forward to is prosperity that's based on balanced, sustainable growth.
But what in terms of the future, in terms of where these jobs are going to come from, we keep hearing manufacturing. We keep hearing technology. Then we also hear about outsourcing and things along those lines. And so, Cecilia, in terms of the job growth in the future, Where's it going to come from? Because you have people today who were making $75,000 a year now taking minimum wage jobs. You have many people who say they are now underemployed, if you will. And so, put on that crystal ball in terms of laying out where we go to in the future when it comes to job growth in this country.
Well, look, if I had a crystal ball that I didn't think was somewhat cloudy, I would probably be trying to cash in. But I think that what we can see is that part of the reason why people are somewhat underemployed or taking those jobs that really they're overqualified for is the fact that we are still in a recovery. And that's somewhat the nature of recoveries, is that those individuals that have the skills, at least they're employed. And that's already a really important fact. As we have growth, as our economy picks up, they will move into the jobs for which they are better qualified, making room for those individuals who are don't even have a job today. So I don't believe that that is the future. Nonetheless, you're touching on an issue that I think many economists are concerned about. I know the president is concerned about, which is growing income inequality. And that has been going on for the last 20, 30 years. And I think it's something about which we will have to deal. But I think really what our economy is dealing with right now is a lack of growth, a lack of aggregate demand. And as that picks up, everybody will be benefiting.
The Fed says that the economy will grow between 2.4% and 2.9% this year. Every time the job reports come out, we hear people say, that's not fast enough, we can't keep up with the demands. But you've had Ben Bernanke say in 2009, guys, look at 5 to 7 years potentially it's going to take us to get out of this. And so isn't it crazy every single month when you hear it where people somehow think it's going to flip a switch and it's going to turn around in 90 days? Shouldn't we simply wrap our minds around the reality that it is going to take potentially another 3 and 4 years for us to dig ourselves out of the huge hole we were in?
Absolutely. This was the greatest recession since the Great Depression. I wish if I were in my classroom, I would show you a chart of the job loss in this recession compared to prior recessions. It was huge. And it was going to take us some time to recover, especially since the roots of the recession were in the financial sector. And that is why it's really an accomplishment that we didn't fall into a depression, that the president and working with Congress was able to stabilize this economy. And it's also why it's so important for there to continue to be investments. We're seeing a recovery, but we know it's not fast enough. This is a phenomenal time for the public sector to be investing in infrastructure. We know that that's one of the foundations of growth. The federal government can borrow at historically low rates. We have construction workers that don't have anything better to do, so they're drawing on unemployment. They're turning to disability insurance. Instead, let's put those workers to work, rebuilding our roads, rebuilding our transportation systems so that we have those platforms for growth, because this will take some time to heal.
Cecilia, always a pleasure. We certainly appreciate you being on Washington Watch again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.